Do you really want to get a dog for Christmas? Really?
I could be a mess, stressed in yesterday. He don't care less. He sees me anyway. Yeah, he sees me anyway. My dog thinks I'm great. He thinks I'm number one. He never hates, even when I'm done.
Welcome to
Okay, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Welcome to this episode of Dog Leads with my dad, Steve Bishop. He is a certified dog trainer, a member of the Pet Professional Guild, and a Family Paws parent educator. He has a BA in psychology and a minor in sociology. Dad has been teaching group classes and private clients professionally for about 15 years. Every week he brings you a little bit of information to help improve your relationship with your dog, using science and sense. If you have questions or would like to suggest a topic, you can leave a comment or email him at bishopsgatetraining@gmail.com. This episode is brought to you by Simple Solutions to Common Problems, a dog training guide by my dad, Steve Bishop. This guide focuses on common challenges that pet owners face, such as barking, jumping, and leash pulling, providing solutions to improve training and enhance the bond between you and your dog. It's available at most online booksellers, and a link will be in the description.
Getting a dog for Christmas can seem like a good idea in the abstract, but there are a lot of potential problems with it. That's not to say that I'm for it, but that's not to say that I'm against it either. It's just there's some extra precautions and things you need to do to set up for getting a puppy or a dog during the holidays as compared to any other time. And a lot of this stuff I'm going to talk about can be used anytime you get a dog, but I want to specifically focus on getting a dog during the holidays. So the first thing to consider is, do you want a dog or do you want a puppy? Puppies take a lot of work. I talked in a previous episode about we adopt dogs out at 8 weeks because that's when the mother is weaning them. It is also when they start going through what's called the bonding period, which is one of those critical developmental stages that all dogs go through. So there's a lot of benefits to getting them at 8 weeks, but the downside is up to about 12, 14 weeks, give or take, is when they're going to learn proper puppy behavior from their litter mates. So you want to keep that in mind. You're also going to have to go through all the potty training and just that adjustment from being in a litter to being by themselves or with a new dog they're not familiar with, and a family they're not familiar with, and a home they're not familiar with, etc., etc. My wife and I, we tend to get dogs that are a little bit older so we don't have to go through the potty training. And usually when they're a little bit older, they come with some training already in place, which can kind of make the adjustment a little bit easier for everybody. The downside to that is you don't know what that history is that dog is going to bring with them. So I've talked about Puck before, and we knew it going in because the rescue that we got him from knew his history and could relate that to us. But he was severely abused before we got him, and he had issues his whole life because of that. So that's kind of the trade-off if you're getting a little bit older dog. And when I say a little bit older, we usually go for 9 months to, I don't know, not quite a year, but you just don't know what kind of baggage those dogs are going to be bringing with them. The other thing you want to think about for any dog is they can cost as much as about $2,000 a year just for the vet visits and the dog food and toys and all those things that they're going to need. I mean, just to start out, you have to, get the leash and the collar and the food and the bed and the toys. That's a big initial investment, but they're going to chew up their toys. They're going to need the beds replaced every so often. Collars, if you get a young dog, you may need to change that a couple of times as they grow so it fits properly. So there is a financial burden to having a dog. Also, maybe burden's not quite the right word, but there's a financial obligation to having a dog. The next thing I have is the time investment. So you're going to need to take a lot of time, even with an older dog, to work with the training and the bonding and all of these things. And particularly during the holidays, are you going to have that time? You may be fixing meals. You may be traveling, or you may be having guests in your home, and you've got to entertain them. Wrapping presents, the tree, all these things that go along with the holidays. Lots of going out and shopping, whether it's for food or presents or whatever. You may not have that time investment or that time to invest that you need for bringing a new dog into the home and helping them adjust. And we're going to circle back to that. The next thing I have is you want to think about the size of the dog. If you get a mutt from a rescue, which I've fully endorse, but you may not know how big that dog is going to get. I was just looking at something the other day. Someone was saying they got a dog that's supposed to be like 40 pounds, and they ended up being 75 or something like that. So you can make an educated guess when you get these mutts into the shelters, but you don't really know. Like you do with a purebred, they're going to get a certain size within a little bit of a range of variation. But the other thing is, do you want a lap dog, for example, somebody that's going to cuddle up in your lap? Then you want, I don't know, maybe a 20, 30-pound dog. Me, I like a dog. I always say if I have to bend over to pet a dog, he's too small. And that's for me and my dogs and my preference. On the same token, I would not want to be able to rest my chin on the back of Irish Wolfhound or something like that. And then think about the breed also. So even if it is a mutt, they're going to have tendencies towards whatever breed happens to be in there. So I always tell people when they get a mutt, well, the doodles are really popular, and I always tell people it's like, it's possible you could get the best of both breeds, you could get the worst of both breeds. It's usually somewhere in between. So you can, again, make an educated guess, but you can't know for sure how those genetic traits are going to play out. And even with purebred dogs, Duncan, that I've talked about often, he was a Brittany, but he was the most un-Brittany I've ever had. Don't get me wrong, again, he was one of those 1 in a million dog, but it just illustrates that you don't always know what you're going to get, even if you are getting a purebred dog. I'm kind of getting off topic here, but the other thing you want to look at is, do you want a high energy dog or do you want a low energy dog? A friend of mine just got a Whippet. I think she's a mix, but mostly Whippet for sure. Very high energy dog. Jeff has to take her to the dog park every day or it's just chaos in the house. The other side of that is, you get a Basset Hound or something like that, and not a lot of energy. You're not going to be taking this dog for long walks, going jogging with them or something like that. So think about what you want there. Also, do you want a smart dog that's bred to work independently, or do you want a focused dog that is bred for one specific task? Again, like somewhere in the middle, Brittany's were bred to point, flush, retrieve. So some intelligence there, but they're not focused on one thing like a Labrador that is bred specifically to retrieve. So you want to think about these things also. Do you want a dog that's cuddly, again, that 20, 30-pound dog that's going to sit in your lap, or do you want a dog that's observant? My brother had a German Shepherd. Anywhere he went, Max would be between my brother and the door, the entrance to that area. Talbot, that I had a while back at about the same time Brian had Max, he would always lay where he could see me and every entrance into whatever room we were in. Those dogs were not cuddly dogs. They were not going to get up on the couch and put their head in your lap and cuddle up against you. So you want to think about those types of behaviors also. And do you want a high maintenance dog or a low maintenance dog? Talbot was half Brittany. Duncan was full Brittany. They needed brushing pretty regular, but it wasn't a total grooming regimen like, a Lhasa Apso, for example, where you have to brush them really every day and go through everything with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that coat's being maintained. But then the other side of that is, again, your Labradors or your Whippets or your short-haired breeds don't take a lot of maintenance, just kind of a cleaning every once in a while and make sure they're not getting into anything stinky. You also want to make sure you find a really good vet. We were taking Talbot to a vet for a very long time until he retired, and the vet that was being trained in to replace him, we just did not have a good rapport. I've been training dogs professionally for 15 years, but I've been training my own dogs for much longer than that. So I want somebody that's going to talk to me like I'm not an idiot. And this person that they had brought in just wouldn't tell us anything that was going on. It was, we're going to do this, 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 and this, and that was it. So we switched vets, and we've been with them for 25 years or more, because they do take the time to explain stuff to us and don't treat us like idiots. But that's totally that bedside manner. If you're not looking for that, you just want someone that's going to take good care of your dog, I could easily have stuck with the first vet. They did a great job. Don't get me wrong. They were very competent, very good vets. So take the time to kind of comparison shop. So your dog should go to the vet every 6 months. Try out a couple of different vets. Talk to people and see what they say. Who's a good vet and who they get along with and what they like about them and what they don't. Ask specific questions. Don't just say, oh, do you like your vet? Say, if the dog needs a shot, what do they do? My vet lets me stay there with the dog. I'll help. Some vets, they will take the dog into a back room where you can't see what's going on and give the dog the shots. Those kind of questions. You want to ask specific questions and not just, is he a good vet? You also want to make sure you puppy-proof your house. And this goes for dogs as well. Dogs, particularly dogs in a new environment, they're going to explore. So they may be going for, see what's on the counter. If they can reach it, oh, can I get away with this? We got Malcolm, the dog we have now. He's a counter surfer. We have to be really careful about puppy proofing, and I use air quotes there, our kitchen, so that he's not getting into stuff. He got a stick of butter last night that was left on the island in our kitchen. You have to be aware of that, and you have to make sure you're staying on top of it. But the same thing with puppies, and even more so. I mean, Malcolm knows not to chew on power cords, for example. When I first got Talbot, he chewed on power cords. That could have ended terribly. Make sure your kids' stuffed animals are put away, or those types of things. You want to really observe the dog first couple of days, see what they're interested in, and then determine if it's something that's appropriate for them to get into, or if you need to manage their access to it. And then, like I mentioned, my wife and I like to get older dogs because one of the things, we don't have to go through that whole potty training thing, and there's a little bit because they're in a new environment. But for a puppy, you're going to have to spend a lot more time working with them. A dog's bladder does not fully develop until 6 to 9 months, depending on size and breed, etc. So the chances are you're going to have, well, not you, but the dog is going to have accidents in the house. So again, we get back to that time investment. Do you have that time to spend potty training them? And along with that, if you're getting a dog for the holiday, so like I'm in mid-Missouri, it was 7 degrees when I got up this morning. Are you going to want to take your dog out and walk them and make sure they go to the bathroom in those kinds of conditions? And we still have January and February to get through. So we're probably going to have a few more cold days. 7 is unusual, but it's not unheard of. When my wife and I lived in Wisconsin, it got down to 60 below for a couple of days when we were up there. The last thing I want to do is take the dogs out and walk them, but I had to do it. And the other thing, and this goes for just any dog, anytime, a dog is a lifetime commitment. You are taking on the responsibility of their life for 15 years. Nothing makes those of us in the industry sadder than when somebody gives up the dog just because they don't want to mess with it anymore. You should have thought about that 6, 8, 10 years ago when you got the dog. This is something I could spend hours on, not just this podcast, so I'm not going to go too in depth into it, but understand it is a lifetime commitment. Hopefully, by virtue of the fact that you're listening to the podcast, you're not one of those people. So like I said, I'll leave that there for now. I'm in the process of working on an episode that's probably going to be 2 or 3 parts spread over a couple of weeks on development, so I don't want to go too much into it, but it is worth mentioning when you're talking about getting a new puppy, and I've touched on some of it. Dogs go through several changes the first few months of their life. They're known as sensitive periods. And the stimuli that they're exposed to during these times can have a lasting effect on a dog and should be considered when bringing a new puppy into the home. So, like Puck that I keep mentioning, he was severely abused when he was going through that fear period and the bonding period, and it had an effect on his entire life. He never liked tall men, never liked men in hats. He was always really stressed about strangers in general, and it was something that he just was dealing with his whole life. He got better as we worked with him, but he was never 100%. So that's an extreme case, but these are the kind of effects that certain stimuli can have during these critical periods. During the bonding period, puppies will form attachments to places, people, other animals. Herding dogs, they will take the puppy at this age, put them with whatever they're going to be herding or protecting, and just, I forget the exact number, it's like 10 minutes a day is enough that they will form that attachment so they can work with these animals. Like I said, it doesn't take much to have a lasting effect. It's necessary that puppies have contact with other dogs during this period to socialize, so socialization can occur with their own species. Puppies exposed to other stimuli, including other species and places between the 5th and the 9th week, have the fewest problems later in life relating to those species or similar situations. And of course, the more concentrated the interaction, the better the effect is going to be. So like I was saying, the stimulation or lack thereof at this point is going to have a very strong influence on later behavior, which can be difficult, if not impossible, to change or modify later. During this period, aversive stimuli can have a very lasting effect, like I was talking about with Puck and the abuse that he was subjected to. Now, back to Christmas and how this all ties together. Because Christmas is such an excitable time, a new puppy can become withdrawn or fearful and have very long-lasting consequences. However, to socialize a new puppy with their family, it is a good idea to have a few days off to spend time with them. So a lot of times, the holidays, there is a lot going on, but after things start to settle down, it's that opportunity to kind of get that bonding in. So if you want to give a puppy as a gift, what I suggest is giving the recipient a leash and collar as a gift, or maybe a card with something written on it to the effect of valid for one new puppy. Then you can spend the rest of the day, deciding where the bowl is going to go, deciding where the bed's going to be, where he's going to sleep, where the kennel is going to go, if you're going to kennel train him, etc. And then after Christmas, when things start to settle down, the new puppy can be picked up. And as most people get the week off between Christmas and New Year, this is a good time where you can start that bonding period. It's also worth mentioning that the AKC has a list of breed-specific rescues if you're looking for a specific breed. So like Duncan, that's how I found him. I wanted a Brittany. I went to the AKC website, found a rescue, and then I found Duncan. Duncan was actually from a champion line of hunting dogs, and if I was a hunter and I cared to, I could have gotten those papers and competed with them or whatever. I just wanted a good companion, and he was ideal. It just worked out. Like I said, he was one of those 1 in a million dogs. But, if you're looking for something that is a little more breed specific, that is a good way to go. I don't want to get into a discussion about the benefits and deficits of going to a breeder as opposed to going to a rescue, but I just wanted to make you aware that there are breed-specific rescues out there. So most of this information comes from something I wrote a while back, but I did find a really good article on Dogster, and I'm going to leave a link to that in the description. So just a few things to consider if you're planning on getting a dog for Christmas. I wanted to try something a little bit different this week, and if it goes well, we will probably continue it. So I'm going to come up with a trivia question, and you can submit your answer. I will take all the correct answers and randomly select a winner and send you whatever the prize happens to be. So this week I'm offering a signed copy of my book, Simple Solutions to Common Problems, a Dog Training Guide. So we'll start really simple this week, I hope. I've talked about this a few times. So what are the 4 quadrants of operant conditioning? You can either leave a comment or, again, you can email me at bishopsgatetraining@gmail.com, and I will send the copy out as soon as someone is selected. If you have any questions or you'd like to suggest a topic that you want to hear me speak on, you can get in touch with me either in the comments or you can email me at bishopsgatetraining@gmail.com.